been a long wait here, Tim, for this. We heard from him today. Were you, I don't know, satisfied is the right word? Maybe correct me for what the right word is in this moment. It's just such a unique situation. Were you okay? Were you satisfied with what you heard today?
Should I be asking you that? Because I don't think I necessarily cared what Kawhi Leonard had to say.
I was pretty chill
today.
about the whole thing. You were panicking, though.
I knew it was probably going to be what it was today. Like, honestly.
I didn't know what to expect today.
That line was probably the most interesting part of what he said.
Agreed.
Which is, I'm not telling you jack. And I figured that he wasn't going to tell us jack about his future. He was just going to come here and say, I play basketball for a living, and that's what I do. And that's what he did. Did you learn something today? Because I think that might be more the question here that we're searching for, right? Like, of all the people who talk, whether it be Danny Green, whether it be Masai Ujiri, and we will have a one-on-one that I had with Masai Ujiri a little later on in the show, whether it be Kawhi Leonard or even Kyle Lowry. Did you learn something today? Let's just start with Kawhi.
Okay, let's start with Kawhi.
Because you were waiting for this.
I was waiting.
You needed to hear from him, even though the fans said they didn't need it.
I needed it like I needed a Snuggie. Just something to keep me comfortable and relaxed.
Okay.
And what I heard kind of made me a bit more relaxed in this sense.
Okay.
Hearing him talk, especially that line about tripping over the present. He is going to be in the city of Toronto for a year, barring a unmitigated disaster and him being traded at the deadline if the Raptors are like 11th in the East, which isn't going to happen. He's going to be here for the year. The one thing I go back to hearing him talk is around this time last year, there was no way Paul George was staying in Oklahoma City, right? There was absolutely no chance.
Yeah, most people thought it was the general consensus around the National Basketball Association that Paul George was going to be there for a year and he was going to bounce. For those who don't know, he stayed.
Oh, he stayed, but he stayed in a moment where LeBron went to the Lakers, so basically it was a massive story that got completely overshadowed outside Oklahoma City, to be fair about it. And this is a league where that can happen. And I was reminded today of that listening to that guy. Because the panic with Raptor fans is he's gone for sure, because that's what happens to the Raptors. That's what happens to this franchise. By hook or by crook, someone is going to leave. Even if DeMar DeRozan wants to stay, they are going to leave in some way, shape, or form. And I think the Paul George story hit me today as I watched this young man speak, because it is not impossible in this league for someone to zig when you think they're going to zag. And if he's that private a person, this is a weird market. This market will leave you alone. This market will give you its space to a certain extent.
Yeah, I was going to say, because he didn't exactly get left alone in his moments of 68 days of silence or with that media scrum, but I think the fans are the ones that would leave him alone.
I think so.
But is it the fans he wants to leave him alone, or is it the media that he wants to leave him alone?
I think it's everybody.
Yeah, I think it's just
personally,
right.
I think it's everybody, but people handle it different. That's just the one thing that stuck out to me. I think the Paul George context is important in this. Because that is an elite guy who was on his way to L.A., and there was no way he wasn't going wherever LeBron was going. And it was done. And Russell Westbrook is not that guy to have a player stick around. Well, you know what? He did.
Yeah.
I am not against the idea of that. I scoffed at it initially. I'm coming around to the idea, listening to him today, that a lot can happen over the next 8 months. And who knows? Because this organization will pay that kid. There's no doubt in my mind. Because he's that good.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I really took away from that today, Tim. Does that make sense?
Does it feel like, as you're speaking, there are two things that jumped out at me? And yeah, it makes sense. But I want to follow up with more conversation. I don't need just the statement.
No, I didn't plan on going to break after.
The follow-up on the conversation for me is, does it not feel like a one-year tryout for whatever Masai Ujiri has turned this franchise into? Like, whatever this franchise has become with the help of DeMar DeRozan, with the help of Kyle Lowry, with the help of Dwayne Casey, doesn't it feel like all of that culture now is on a one-year tryout with Kawhi Leonard, and he is judge, jury, and executioner of where they're at? Because it feels like if Kawhi Leonard doesn't stay, that this franchise is in trouble, despite the fact that a lot of these youngsters who have come in the last few years have started to look pretty good.
Yeah.
And even reputations around the league on some of these youngsters are growing. And yet still, it feels like this is a one-year tryout for the Raptors franchise and Kawhi Leonard.
The franchise's hinges are hanging on him right now. There's no question about that. This will go one of two ways, and it's obvious which one, because Kyle's 2 years out from leaving, potentially. So this either happens or it doesn't. Kawhi either puts down roots in this country or he doesn't, and then Masai has a very clear idea of what to do going forward. And the money will eventually free up. And the guy I think who's really important here, like the other thing I took from that today, and we knew this, Danny Green's going to be very important in this. Danny Green, a couple times during that presser today, played the role of conduit.
Yeah.
To a certain extent.
Yep.
He is an engaging personality. He's a vet. He's been around this league. He's obviously close with Kawhi. That's important.
For those who didn't see it, Kawhi Leonard is an introvert, if you don't know that by now. He's just not one to be loquacious in his talk. In fact, there are people that have been with him for years who say they haven't heard a lot from him. During the press conference, it was Kawhi Leonard, Masai Ujiri, Danny Green, and some questions were just thrown out there, and Danny Green jumped in, intercepted them, did so with a laugh, and moved on. It was like he was sparing Kawhi from the grilling that he was taking there. The second part of the conversation that I wanted to have was if the franchise's future does hinge upon Kawhi Leonard, is that why Masai Ujiri, near the end of their portion of the news conference, was so adamant about the narrative changing? You mentioned it earlier. Everyone who's been here has left before DeMar DeRozan was traded. You can go down the line. Damon Stoudemire, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. Bruno Caboclo, Chris Bosh. Is that why Masai Ujiri was so upset when someone brought up the narrative about people leaving and what this franchise was about? If you didn't hear it, here's Masai Ujiri kind of trying to change the way people think in Toronto, in Canada, about the Raptors.
Guys, the narrative of not wanting to come to this city is gone. You know, like, I think that's old, and we should move past that. Believe in the city. Believe in yourselves. You know, first of all, here in Toronto, we have to believe in ourselves, right? Yeah, we should stop talking about, like, coming to the city or wanting to come to the city. That's old talk.
First off, the section that we're cheering, were that parts of the media?
No, there was some fans that were.
Sometimes I don't know.
Kind of some general access area, and there was about 100
It's a pretty
fans.
open area. It's basically the concourse of Scotiabank Arena, if you haven't been there. I love the passion. We've seen it before.
Yeah.
I don't think bringing guys in on a trade where they have no other options is the example to prove your point, right? These are not free agent acquisitions. You made a deal. They got a report.
No, but he's right. They have to change this.
Well, you do have to change it.
Like when a guy comes from another city and the city is asking questions on whether or not he's going to be the next one to leave. If I'm the GM, I'm doing the exact same thing.
You got to fight back on that. And for the record, it was a news guy who came in and asked that question, not necessarily a guy covering the team every day who asked that question. I don't know if that means anything to you, but it was.
Was there more hard questions of Kyle Lowry than there were of Kawhi Leonard? Like, other than the member of the San Antonio press that made his way to Toronto for this.
Dude flew up to ask a question about the Spurs, got shot down in 2 seconds, went home. That was his assignment today.